Hello, I'm Police Commissioner William Dwyer. Welcome to another season of Police Journal. This program will give you an inside look at the Warren Police Department and highlight other issues that impact our community. I always welcome your comments and suggestions. Please feel free to email me at wdwyer@warrenpd.org. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to another segment of Police Journal. I'm Police Commissioner Bill Dwyer, and today I think you're going to find the show very interesting. We have a guest today that certainly has his a full plate when it comes to his responsibility. He's the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, Terrance Berg. Terry, if I could call you Terry, welcome to Police Journal. As the public knows, the United States Attorney's Office has been extremely busy for the past probably couple years with a lot of investigations, political corruption, and other responsibilities that you have in the office. So we're going to get into some of those areas, in particular political corruption, because I think today that's certainly something that the public is interested in to know more about it, what's happening. But first of all, maybe we could ask you a little background on yourself, your professional background, and maybe a little personal background on where you've been. And
sure, be glad to. Thanks, Bill, for inviting me to be here today. I'm the U.S. Attorney. I'm a career prosecutor, so I've been with the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Eastern District for really since 1989, almost 20 years. I had 4 years from 1999 through 2003 where I worked for the Michigan Department of Attorney General, and that was during the time when Governor Granholm was the Attorney General. And during that time, we set up a high-tech crime unit for the state of Michigan. And so most of my experience really has been as a career prosecutor. I also worked for a law firm in Washington, D.C. for 2 years and had a lot of experience doing litigation, corporate litigation, and that sort of thing. And then I worked for a federal judge for a year as what they call a law clerk. So that's most of my experience being doing trials in federal court as an assistant United States attorney. That's pretty much my career. I did become the first assistant for our office during the administration of Stephen Murphy, who was our U.S. attorney, who just finished his term and became a district judge. And so that's my career in a nutshell.
Well-rounded, Terry. Well-rounded. Why don't we start with, I'm sure our audience is really not aware of what the United States Attorney's Office responsibilities are. Obviously, as we talked, we know what you're doing right now as far as political corruption, but you have much more responsibility as far as other areas, as far as investigations. Could you kind of just fill us in?
Sure, I'd be glad to, because other than the headlines of some of our cases, a lot of times your average citizen doesn't necessarily know what the U.S. Attorney's Office is or what it does. Basically, we represent the federal government here in the Eastern District of Michigan. The Eastern District is pretty much the eastern half of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. That's the jurisdiction that we cover. And so we represent the United States both in civil court matters and in criminal matters. So because of that, we have a civil division and a criminal division. Our criminal division does most of the work that people have heard about, and we do a broad variety of cases. Has to be a violation of federal law, but many times there's what they call concurrent jurisdiction on certain kinds of crime, like let's say drug trafficking. We do a lot of big drug trafficking cases, but they tend to be your complicated, conspiracies where we're actually trying to go after a whole organization of drug dealers and try to take them off. We've done a number of cases in that area lately that have gotten some degree of public recognition. Then we also do national security related cases. We have a unit called our National Security Unit that does counterterrorism cases. That's new since 9/11. And many of those cases actually involve tracking money that's going from our district off to the Middle East and possibly landing in the hands of terrorist organizations. And so we do those kinds of investigations. We also have an economic crimes unit that covers white-collar crime, your complex fraud, conspiracies, that sort of thing. We have a unit that does what we just call general crimes, and that covers things like kidnapping, firearms violations, such as the illegal possession of a firearm by a felon would be an example of those cases. Immigration cases, people who are smuggling aliens into the country would be a kind of case that they do. And these days, another kind of case that we've done quite a bit of are your internet child predator cases. These are the individuals who are trying to basically solicit minors on the internet. And so
that has to be a big responsibility right now, and an increase as far as what you're seeing out there.
It really is. It really is. In fact, Justice Department created a whole program called Project Safe Childhood, where they paid for a couple of extra prosecutors and many of the offices around the country, and where they've also encouraged us to do outreach into the community, where we'll do presentations in the schools and for parents groups talking about the dangers of the internet for children and what to avoid. We've done a number of those things, including recently in Macomb County here. And so those are mostly what we do. The only unit from the criminal side that I left out was our special prosecutions unit, and that's the unit that does the public corruption cases that you were talking about a moment ago.
Right.
From the civil side, just to kind of tie it up, as I said, we represent the United States in court, and so we have it divided into affirmative and defensive litigation. And so our affirmative litigation unit will cover any times the United States is actually suing someone in court. That would be, let's say, Medicare fraud. Someone is getting Medicare funds through some sort of fraudulent means, then we actually go after them and sue to get that money back. We also, our forfeiture unit is there. So if someone is using drug proceeds and they're buying cars or buying jewelry, that sort of thing, we seize that stuff. Houses, we seize that, and that requires us to go into court. And the other side, defensive litigation, we defend the United States. So a postal truck runs over somebody, someone is injured in a VA hospital, then it's the lawyers from the US Attorney's Office that go into court and represent the United States. And so that's what our office does.
Yeah. That leads me to ask you the staffing of the office. I mean, with all of the responsibilities you have, what is your staffing levels? And you're located in Detroit, correct?
We're located in Detroit, downtown Detroit, right there on Fort Street, across from the federal courthouse, which is on Lafayette. And we have 104 attorneys, so it's a pretty decent-sized office. We are one of the larger offices in the country. Detroit's, the Eastern District of Michigan is considered within the Department of Justice an extra-large district. And so when I go to meetings of the other offices that are comparable to Detroit, they're the other major cities in our country. So it's New York, it's Los Angeles, it's Chicago, the other big cities. We're probably the smallest of the extra-large offices, but we're still one of the extra-large offices. So it's definitely a district that's one of the major markets, if you will.
So how would someone become a U.S. attorney?
Well, you know, people get there through different paths. I would say primarily what we're looking for is individuals who are great lawyers. And so oftentimes what happens is a person starts out their career by working in a county prosecutor's office. And they earn their spurs through trials there and become maybe one of the most respected trial lawyers in a particular county. And then frequently those individuals will apply to work at our office. That's kind of one pool of candidates that we have. The other kind of track I would mention is your sort of very high academic track. In other words, somebody went to a very good law school, they clerked for, let's say, an appellate judge, they went to work for a law firm, they got a lot of experience working in complex matters. That might be another route to our office. And so there's not really one way, but I would say those are the two ways. Maybe you're sort of real in-court trial lawyer, prosecutor guy, and then maybe you're more academic, professional, big firm lawyer guy. But there's, and of course, women too. We've got a large number of